Welcome to This is ADHD podcast. I'm your host, Chris Johnson. This is a podcast about the experience of what it means to have ADHD. I chose the name This is ADHD intentionally because my thoughts were every time I looked online, I couldn't see myself. And I'm sure that's the experience for many people out there. If you look and you see all these other people with ADHD and you go, well, I'm not like those other people. Do I really have ADHD? Is that me? And I wanted to open up a space to have conversations about people's reflections and lives with ADHD so that others could see that this is ADHD. And what you have is ADHD, probably if you're listening to this as well. In today's episode, I am talking with Nick Ostler. Nick Ostler is a wellness expert and health fitness and all those kind of wonderful things. She's a personal friend of mine, and we are going to be talking about the challenges of being a neurodivergent parent, of being a parent of neurodivergence, and the journey that Nicola had going from I don't know what ADHD is through to here's my diagnosis and this is me. For this episode, Raising ADHD, I'm here with my friend Nicola Ostler. We've been friends since 2018, so 5 years. Nicola is a wellness expert. She is a fitness coach. She's an educator. And we contacted and got back in touch after a while, after we both realised that we'd been diagnosed with ADHD within a few months of each other. Welcome, Nicola.
Hi, lovely to be here, Chris.
Hello. How are you doing?
Very good. I think when we first started talking about doing this podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I just love to talk about it. I mean, it's hard to shut up anyway. When it's ADHD and getting a late diagnosis, it's it'd be hard to shut me up, I think.
Right. I think there's another episode at some point of going like you get ADHD and then it becomes your personality.
Yeah.
Of saying like you just want to tell everyone.
Yes, exactly. Now I've got an excuse for everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's not me, it's the ADHD.
It's
which it is.
Not you. It's not boring.
So Nick, how would you describe your ADHD? How does it turn up for you?
So I would say the way I describe it when I'm talking to my kids about it or I'm struggling in a situation, I'll say, my brain's managing this right now. So I refer to it as my brain, I guess, behaving in a way. And by referring to it as that, I think it acknowledges that I know something's going on. Either need time out or just to explain why I'm behaving in the way I am or saying what I'm saying, I think. So I refer to it as my brain. What is ADHD to me? I think I grew up feeling that I was just a bit too much. Too much. It is very much that. She's too emotional, she's too reactive, she's oversensitive, gets too involved. I think it's a lot of that. And even as a grown up, I see people perhaps pull away because I'm just too enthusiastic, too argumentative. I love a bit of confrontation, I love a good discussion. A lot of people don't, it turns out.
Yeah. Right.
So I think it's over the top. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's funny when you flip it on the other way around of saying like we're too much for people, we're oversensitive, we're too enthusiastic. It's like, why are these negative things? And I don't understand it like in that wider context of going like, how can you be too much for someone? Like, how can you be too excited about something you're excited about? It's like, just calm it down. Why is that a good thing? And like that oversensitive thing of why are you just being so mean to me? Like, there's kind of those little digs and things like that going like, it's a hard world. Why are we not nice?
Yeah, and sometimes said, wow, you're too excited about this or whatever. Sometimes you just read it in people, and that is really hard. I think that's why people with ADHD do naturally gravitate towards other people who are neurodivergent. I just think we kind of match energies. It makes us feel safe and understood. Even before the diagnosis, I recognise, and a lot of my friends and acquaintances and the people I've had the times with, and the most understanding and empathetic relationships with, they probably have it too.
Yeah. I literally turn around to people in the pub and go, I know we're having a lovely time. Have you considered an ADHD diagnosis? I'm not saying I've noticed anything, but all my friends have got this.
Enjoy hanging out with me.
Yeah.
It is, being too much is enjoying everything to the extreme, but also you feel the negatives as well. So we talk about being over empathetic. We feel people's pain. We take on other people's problems. That's why I could never be a nurse or a vet. I love animals and I love people and I want to help people, but I would just take on all of the angst and worry and pain and not be able to get rid of it. So, yeah, definite pros and cons to it. I live very much in the moment, so it's hard to plan things with me because too far away, I just can't contemplate what's happening in the future. And if it's too immediate, then I'm just like, it's plan. So there's a very small window where we can do things. You very, very patient friends.
Yeah. This one was quite nice because I gave you no notice whatsoever on this. Like, can we meet up in like 2 weeks? And you're like, yeah, done.
5 days, Chris.
5
days. That I can do. 2 weeks. Way too long.
Love it. And what impact did it have on you, like before diagnosis?
So when I look back, it all just fit together. I was like, so that's why I underperformed in tests. My memory is terrible. My focus in class wasn't great. It's why I was the naughty kid at home, not at school. At home, I always felt like I was naughty. And I was talking to my mum about this recently. He's like, did you felt like the naughty one? I was like, well, compared to my sisters, I was loud and over the top. I wanted to ride the bikes. I wanted to learn to drive first. I wanted action. I wanted drama. So I wanted arguments. I wanted responses to things. I wanted to be out with my friends all the time. And I was very different to my two sisters. I think it made me feel like the odd one out. It also turns out I'm very like my mum. That's another topic, because like when you find out about your ADHD, you're like, oh, so that person in my family has that. That person in my family maybe is on the autistic spectrum. It just takes you through a whole world of understanding, which is what I love about diagnosis. I felt like I was similar to my family, particularly. I was good in school because I have the intellect to do well. And I think I was lucky that the school I went to really kept me reined in and pushed me academically, and I did well, but they also didn't give me any spare time to do my own thing. So it was constant achievement, but I was one of those people who did my homework on the train in the morning going to school, or really hurried during my lunch break for the next period because I just hadn't planned properly. So early school to GCSEs, it was fine. Released sixth form, where you have a free period in the morning, you have a free period at the end of the day. Did I use that to study? Did I used to hang out with my mates, sleep in, do sport? Yes. But therefore, the freedom I had at sixth form wasn't good for me because I used the time unwisely.
I think that hearing that resonates with me. I kind of like, I did okay with GCSEs.
Yeah.
Got to sixth form, went flopped through it for 2 years. Got to university, flopped through that for 3 years. I was like, oh, okay, where are we now? I was like, I think there's that thing of like the structures that were not in place were really difficult. Of that thing of keep having to organise and coordinate yourself or myself.
Like you see it in your life, don't you? It's so hard to motivate yourself to do the things you have to do if they're boring.
Yeah.
I don't want to fill out that form. I would rather scroll through Instagram, go for a run, have a chat with my mate. Always
Phrase at the moment. It's I like to work hard and I like to procrastinate harder.
also, this is why I don't have a proper job. As I think it was due to one amazing tutor I had at university who through the pretty good degree. He recognised, I think, what I didn't, and he let me have it in late. He coached me on all the gaps I had before my exams, and I got a good 2-1. Which meant that I went as a postgraduate to Cambridge, right? And none of that would have happened without him. So I think to be successful with somebody with ADHD, you need awesome support, either from your parents, your siblings. It only needs to be one teacher in school, really, who has your back. And then a partner who gets that all the drama is worth it because you're super fun, super spontaneous, super passionate, super exciting. But they're probably going to have to always do the grocery shop online, book the holidays, and put lunch money on the kids' accounts, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that thing of like here for the fun, not so much here for the drudgery. Sorry.
It's like a very patient partner.
Yeah, I think there's that thing because we communicate in a different way. I think there's that thing of the conversation goes in fits and starts and goes in a different way to what you would have with a neurotypical. And someone described it the other day as like neurotypicals is like a tennis match where you go A, B, A, B, A, B. Whereas neurodivergent people, so ADHDers, autistics, we take the ball when we're ready to take it, as opposed to it being hit to us and us having to immediately respond and saying, actually, our processing will get there eventually and we'll have the conversation at the pace that we want. And it's fine for you to come and take the ball or me to come and take the ball because we understand that because that's how we work as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that actually fits with ADHD girls in school in that there are, I was always told I was really quiet in class. All my reports said she's great, but she needs to speak more in class. And I hear all the time about girls with ADHD. But they are processing the question they've been asked and just can't come up with the question before somebody else has put their hand up, or they've heard the question and they've forgotten their answer to it by the time their turn comes around, or they're not completely sure they heard the question right because they had switched off for a second, and that leads to these quiet ADHD girls in schools, I think.
Yeah, and it's one of those things of classic ADHD in girls and classic ADHD in boys. It's kind of marked as very different, but I'm aware as well with this podcast. I'm trying to say, okay, you can also have boys who present in the girl way and girls who present in the boy way as well. Of saying like, look, it's not that just here's the gender split. It's that kind of spectrum, as it were.
Yeah, completely agree. Just like there's an autism spectrum, you get autistics who don't speak at all, and you get autistic people who are incredibly creative and interactive.
What was the journey for you to kind of go from, I might have ADHD to here's my diagnosis?
So, funnily enough, the first person to suggest to me I might have ADHD was my hairdresser. And this was probably about 3 years ago. I've known him for about 20 years. And he's like, have you considered you've got ADHD? And I'm like, no. I'm like, no. And that was the end of the conversation. I was like, why on earth would you say that? So when it was raised again was when my second daughter, what she's so like me in her emotional responses to things, real acute sense of rejection. So she took criticism, or well, she still was criticism really hard. So why I started looking at what might be going on with her is because I thought it might be anxiety about going to a new school. So I looked at, as you Google, anxiety in 11-year-old girls, and that just led me to what ADHD in girls can look like. And then it was absolutely her. And then I realised, because I'm so like her and she's so like me, I was like, if she has ADHD traits, oh my gosh, so do I. Is that what's going on here?
Oh God.
Yeah. So thank you to my kids, to raise it. But then I looked at getting her diagnosed and thought about why I would do that. How is ADHD impacting her right now, if it is ADHD? And what would be the course to make that happen? I have a friend who's a psychologist. She recommended something. She was an ADHD autistic diagnosis specialist, and he was able to see me quite quickly before Christmas, and he said fill out the online forms, and I had done every single online assessment there was by then, so I all of the boxes. And he said, come in, we'll have some interviews and see where we are. By the end of the first 2 hour interview, he was just referring to me as neurodivergent. And I was like, oh, so I am then? And he's like, yes. Yes, you are.
Okay.
So I didn't need a medical assessment or any kind of professional diagnosis because I'm self-employed. I'm happy. There were no areas in my life that was necessary, so I didn't need to pursue that further. What I wanted from it was an understanding for my children and to make sense of my life up till then and going forward, because I always felt like something was different about me, not necessarily bad, just different. I knew that I was too much for some people. I knew that I found certain things difficult. I knew I got very easily overwhelmed. I'm like an introvert extrovert, and my friends really find that really hard. I recognise that in myself before the ADHD diagnosis. I really need my own time. Whereas a lot of my friends were like, it surprises me about you. The fact I don't see an active group. Like, oh, that really surprises me about you. Like, no, I love being social. I love people. I feed energy. But then I absolutely have to just decompress and take myself off.
Post-diagnosis, how did that kind of, because for me, I went to quite a dark place for a little while of going, oh my God, I don't understand what I'm going to do with my life, like where this is, what this is, how I've lived my life like this. Where do you kind of go after the diagnosis? So
I had said to my kids and also my husband, I was going for this interview with the psychotherapist. We're going to find out whether, mummy's brain works slightly differently than other people's. How exciting. So I went out with a very positive attitude to it. And I came back, walked in the house and went, yeah, ADHD. So that was the celebration. Like, there's an answer. Now let's make sense of this. All very excited to start with. And then, like you said, it was okay, what do I do with this? Was it all my fault that apprenticeship didn't work out? Was it all my fault that I didn't do as well in my I should have? Is it all my fault that I'm not making the most of my Cambridge University education? What did it mean going forward? And what did it mean for everything that happened in the past? And what does it mean for children, 3 of whom I suspect have ADHD, definitely display ADHD traits. So there was, I'd say, 2 or 3 months of where do I find myself in this? Now, I feel great about it. I think I was public about it. I shared my diagnosis with my followers on my Instagram and my Facebook. Some people, including you, were very supportive, and you become part of a community of people who, particularly late diagnosis people, who felt like they were understood and understand themselves, which was really important. But also, I found that some people didn't really speak to me again. That's interesting.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
Either stop responding to stuff on social media significantly, or you haven't seen them for lunch, or haven't seen them to hang out. Whether it's threatening or whether they feel like it's some kind of personality disorder, I don't know. Maybe they don't like me, and that's okay. I understand. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I will call out the RSD there as well, the rejection sensitivity. Going, oh, it must be something that I've done.
Yeah. So it's definitely been a journey of discovery and ups and downs. But right now, I feel great about it because I have such an understanding of what my children are going through when they're struggling. And I offer things to them that I didn't have offered to me. I mean, I've said to my teachers the other day, oh, I feel so happy for you that we know what's going on. No one said to me, is your ADHD brain working now? So let's hear what it's doing, but it's not actually what's happening, right? So you're not actually angry with Daddy right now because he can't find your PE shirt. You're wound up and worried what will happen if you don't turn up to school tomorrow with your PE shirt, okay? And because it's late and there's a deadline, you're getting wound up about it. I try not to use the word stressed and anxious because I don't want my kids to believe they're stressed and anxious. I need to say to my husband, you're getting wound up by her being wound up, and it's her ADHD brain that's doing it. So you just need to back off a little bit, let her be wound up, and then it will pass. Because that's what I needed. This is so I can give them what I needed as a kid. Even though my parents were understanding, they couldn't say to me, this is your brain just not coping with the situation right now. Have a minute, and I'll help you when you calm down a bit, or something like that. I just didn't know what to do.
If after you've got your diagnosis, it's kind of impacting your parenting. How else has it impacted your parenting? How's it impacted your relationship with child number 3, but also the other 3 that you think might have ADHD as well?
So the eldest daughter, second child, has a different version to me. She has, I believe, and the school is supporting us in this, she has ADD. So doesn't have a hyperactivity. She just has the lack of focus and the need to fiddle and think all of the time. Her memory also isn't great. So, oh my gosh, there's so much talk about the schools, but there was a behavioural survey sent home that the kids marked the boxes that were inappropriate, unacceptable behaviours. One was yawning. Okay, another one was fiddling with things. Another one was like daydreaming. So to me, all of those are neurodivergent behaviours and not naughty behaviours, right? So then I had a conversation with them about that, called the principal, and I said, I don't think these behaviours should be on here. They are ADHD neurodivergent behaviours, and they're not kids being naughty. They're kids that have extra needs or extra understanding. And the school completely agreed and said that they should have checked the survey more carefully before they sent it out. So that was a win. So I feel a bit of an advocate for neurodivergent kids. I could then go to the school and say, my daughter is displaying traits of ADD. Start the assessment process. because she is GCSE years, so it's important for her to get help if she needs it. So one of the adjustments, the reasonable adjustments they've made for her, is for her to have breaks during tests, so she can leave the room, refocus, come back and carry on. So otherwise she'd be sat there, end of the focus that she had.
Kind of professionally as well, I can see when you're dissociating it right now. You're like you've gone. You're not there. Yeah. We should probably have a break. But if you can't identify it in others, go actually totally go. Like just have that kind of capacity, reset, and then get back into it.
Yeah.
Is there anything negative from your ADHD diagnosis?
So I think that the negative things is at what people perceive you as a person with ADHD. People don't understand what it is and who aren't interested because they're not. Right? It's not relevant to them.
Yeah.
But it is because there's so many of us, and chances are you're going to be connecting with somebody or coming into contact with somebody in a shop or whatever it is. It's relevant to everybody to understand each other. So I think the most negative thing would be some friends' reactions through the absence of discussion or acknowledging.
Yeah.
I think that I had understood, because I am really self-aware, I've always analysed myself, that's why I'm I think that the diagnosis just made me realise that I needed more of what I was doing. I kind of worked out what I needed. So the fact that I'm self-employed, the fact that my business revolves around accusing and exciting other people to look after themselves and their health and their fitness makes sense. The fact that I work in terms again makes sense. Another positive, sorry to keep it positive, but another positive is the sense that, I used to think, I had a program, I felt like I was really underperforming. But no, now it's just reaffirmed for me that I'm doing what I should be doing. I'm helping people. I am creating. I'm doing what I love doing in my own time. So I love exercise, whether it was always a dopamine hit, ADHD treatment I found for myself. I can now share that with more and more people. So I think it made me recognise that what I'm doing right now is absolutely the right thing. I don't need to prove myself in somebody else's version of what success is. I really don't, because it never worked for me to do that.
What I'm hearing is the diagnosis is almost like permission.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely it has. Give me permission to carry on enjoying what I'm doing because it works for me. I always felt that I should be doing more with my education, more with my experience. I'm not a school teacher anymore. Still back there a little bit, but I always felt like I would go back to teaching when my kids were older. But maybe I won't now. Maybe running my own business and being able to choose my hours and be available for my family is more important than thinking I should go back to being a full-time teacher. So yeah, I think it is a permission thing. I think you've got it, Chris.
Is there any advice that you would give to parents of neurodivergent kids?
So I think chances are if your kids are neurodivergent, you are, or your partner is, or your parents were. So I think it's about being really aware of how you interact with each other. I think, like I said to you about the incident with the final fusion of my daughter and my husband, it's about recognising what's going on in that moment of whatever it is, anger or frustration, and recognise whether it's their ADHD or yours. And perhaps explaining to them what's happening, including yourself in what's happening, and also apologising, learning to apologise by saying, you don't always have the right answers. Sometimes you get it wrong, because there's so much emotion with people with ADHD. and, oh my God, flying off the handle. There's a sudden, and then it's gone 5 minutes later. And it can leave the rest of the family reeling because it's harder for them to come down from that than it is the person who's experienced the outburst. So it does require a lot of understanding, learning to say sorry, and I think recognising that it's not a bad thing. ADHD is not a bad thing to have or be.
Yeah.
And I really think it's all about support.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like the kind of explaining what you do. I like all of it. I want to go into apologising, but I'm writing notes because my working memory is shot as well. But the explaining what you think the situation is, explaining how you're feeling, that feels really powerful. Of saying, like, I think this is the situation that's going on. I think you're feeling this, and I think this is the cause, and things like that. And yeah, with the t-shirt example as well, that's what are your reflections on that? Is that useful?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm just experimenting with it over the past 6 months, really. But it diffuses situations like that before. And actually, I thought it'd be less at first. So there's always the saying that you take your feelings out on the people closest to you because you know it's unconditional love.
Yeah.
So therefore, you can take your feelings out on the people closest to you. I think what it does is recognise that you can, but it does hurt people. It hurts me when you say that. It hurts me when you slam the door and shout something horrible to me. And it's about sharing your feelings, really.
Yeah.
It's about sharing your feelings, being open enough with your kids. But, you know, they're amazing kids. They are in touch with how they feel. They are compassionate listeners. They stand up for their friends. I think all of the talking about how you're feeling and what to do with those feelings is just helpful for kids. And if they see us doing it, then they know how to do it as parents.
It's almost that kind of modelling of saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling blah, 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 blah. I don't have to respond to those feelings potentially, or here's the options that I have and things like that.
Yeah. And also, I can now preempt things. I'll say, I've got a podcast with Chris at 1 o'clock. The whole morning, I'm going to be preparing for a podcast, whether it's timing my exercise or my lunch or my shower around that. Like, I'm not going to be able to do with anything else that morning. So make sure you're at school. Make sure you don't call. I'll come pick you up if you're not feeling very well. Literally, that's what happened this morning. So it's preempting, being aware of how you're feeling and sharing.
There's that thing as well about learning to say sorry. Are there any tips on how to do that as an adult in a position of authority to your kids?
I think it was modelled for me. My did it for me on one occasion, and it was so significant, had such an impact on me that obviously that stuck with me, and I knew it was important. So, I mean, I had 4 children within 7.5 years. You can imagine that was quite a period of overwhelm. So I often had, I think, perhaps unnecessarily high expectations of the older ones. I needed them to take some control of something, even if I was cooking dinner. Like, oh, please, baby, just make sure they don't crawl under something. So, and then recognising afterwards, saying, sorry, that wasn't fair of me to expect you to take care of the baby because that's my job. I shouldn't have been cross with you because they pulled the blob or something like that.
I really like that thing of, like, it's not bad or wrong. It's just that thing of, this wasn't the situation that I intended. And
And I reacted like that because the rice was over, and the cat had it, and the baby was crying, and I was just so overwhelmed. I'm sorry, I just didn't talk with you. It's not the kid's fault. It's rarely the kid's fault. I just think kids.
I think there's that thing. There's something that I use with my ADHD, which is it explains things. it explains why I'm messy, it explains why I'm disorganized, it explains why I'm emotional, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't excuse the impact that it has on others, though.
No.
And it's that thing of saying, this is the reasons why, but also I'm still sorry about it and I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you live with somebody, that's exactly it's like, I know me being messy is really difficult for you. I'm sorry. What can we do to make it better? Right?
Yeah.
And you can think about what you're capable of. I mean, I'm so messy as well. Thankfully, my husband isn't a clean freak. We kind of get to the same point where we're like, okay, we need to do something. But it's something as simple as laundry. Like, so I'll put everybody else's in piles. Mine will just going on the floor now. Mine will just go in a washing basket. But it's not on the floor.
Doom piles.
My stuff, and it's not on the floor.
And how do you deal with, like, well, let's keep this safe as well. Like, with your kids with the ADHD traits, are there any that need accommodations in the home? And how do you kind of deal with them? I think of doom piles as a kid, I often had run-ins with my parents around that thing of just keep your room tidy. So looking back, very difficult.
So, well, perfect example this week. I took a day trip to IKEA to help my ADD daughter organise her room. I can't see the floor, I can't get to the window to open the window. And even somebody who's quite messy, that is another level of messy. And there's no point going on at her because I know she can't help it. But I also understand because there's this kind of impermanence thing that we have. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. Therefore, if you put your clothes away, you'll forget what you've got to wear. So I can relate to her so completely. So I thought, how on earth can I help her? And I've completely redesigned her bedroom. And instead of having drawers, we're going to have crates that you can throw your underwear in and t-shirts. She doesn't care if they're ironed or not, right? She just needs to have a person that's not going to feel like a task, like a chore. So that would be an example of how I've used my experience having ADHD to help her organise. I don't have typically ADHD children that are hyperactive. The daughter that instigated the whole process, she has hyperactivity in the form of she has to be doing all the time. She's really bored. And I understand my research that kind of boredom can be physically painful. You need to be doing all the time. So helping her manage that is hard. I kind of feel like I need to be entertaining. And sometimes by the time to play, I just need a little bit of quiet time before I go out and be entertaining again in the evening. That's my job. So, it's hard. But I don't have the stereotypical level of energy that are hard to manage. I don't need to be like, well, go and bounce on the trampoline for 10 minutes, get out of your system. I don't have to be misbehaviour at school. Their hyperactivity seems to be more internalised, and the sensitivity, being trying to do the wrong thing. There's a lot more emotional than it is physical, I think, in our house, which isn't easy when we're all like it.
You would think that ADHDs would be more understanding of our ADHD. It's like, no, we're all sparking off of each other. We're all having a reaction to this event. Each other's reactions as well.
It's never a dull moment. And I honestly think that's why I chose to have 4 children, because you seemed like, well, this is easy. I wanted more drama, and I wanted more going on. I wanted action. I wanted stuff happening around me. And it is wonderful. Wonderful. Never a dull moment, which I think.
What are your thoughts on kind of special, gifted, twice exceptional? Have you heard of those terms, and do you have any feelings about that?
Twice exceptional, actually.
Oh, so twice exceptional, from what I understand, is where you have a neurodivergent trait, and you have an IQ over 140.
Okay.
So it's, for me, I personally have a reaction to that of saying, like, what are we saying about everyone else? And we're not saying that people with neurodivergent traits are once exceptional.
Of course we are.
Yeah.
Gifted. I think labels are bad. I mean, I labelled myself in public, right? I said,
Yeah.
and it gives people an impression of you that's not you. It just feeds into all of their biases and experiences of what those terms meant to them. It's not about the individual. So being from teaching and being a parent, I just don't think they're a good thing. If you describe someone, it means they should achieve amazing. They should be accepted.
Yeah.
They should get the top in every test. They should get the most. They should be amazing at sports. They should do everything, right? If they fall short of what they feel their expectations are, they are always going to be miserable. Because they're going to feel like they've let everybody down, they've let themselves down. Absolutely feed into people's strengths and children's strengths. They're good at something, let them go with it. I think with kids with ADHD, it's constantly changing. I'm the same with myself. I didn't spend long enough in anything to be exceptional. I was above average in my sports, but I was never going to be a gold medalist because I just don't have staying power. I want to move on and find the next best thing. And I see it with my kids. They'll try everything, and I'll absolutely let them sign up for every club they want to. But chances are they'll do it for them and then want to try something else.
Yeah, I think there's a real pressure, isn't there, to go, you've done it for this long, you're doing quite well, you're seeing a lot of progress. You're not, no, I've got as good as I'm going to be. I'm not interested in this anymore. Like, let's move on to the next thing.
The child's choice. It's about respecting them as a human and not an parent. They just have to decide for themselves, right? If they're not a county swimmer or I don't know, they play netball for England, how bad is their life going to be because of that? How much worse off are they? Right? If they enjoy swimming and they enjoy playing netball, let them do that. Yeah, I'm not a parent. Anyway, just let them enjoy. I'd rather be average at lots of things than special in one thing.
I think there's.
What do you think about it? What do you think about those labels of gifted and exceptional?
Yeah, I think there's. I worry about gifted and exceptional and special and things like that because of the pressure. And I think there is that kind of banding which kind of goes, you're acceptable to society, you're not acceptable to society. I worry about those because it's that thing of like, I'm fairly intelligent, but not that intelligent. I'm this, I'm not. I'm that thing of going, looking back at it and going, actually, because I'm not this, I potentially am just a naughty boy with ADHD. I feel like we're banding people of saying these are the people that we care about, these are the people that we write off. And I worry about that. And I worry that kids with labels like that, as opposed to diagnostic labels, don't get the support that they need.
Right, yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
So you think diagnosis is important?
I think so. But I think it's important for the right reasons. Of saying, like, if I need support, if I need special accommodations, if I need to understand myself, yeah, great. And go, okay, I know autism has got this really heavy stigma on it of saying, like, we don't want to call our kids autistic. And it's like, but if there's nothing wrong with autism, if it is just a component of a person and it helps them understand themselves, why would we take that away from them?
Absolutely, 100%. I know a young person who was 15 and started having therapy and found out a lot about herself. And I said, I'm so happy for you to find out at your age what's going on. Because some people never find out and they just think they're falling short all of the time. Find out later and then it all makes sense. But by then is it anxiety? Was it depression? No, if you know you've got ADHD or autism now, you can understand why you respond to things. It doesn't make you a bad person. You don't want to go and hang out with those people. It's just you're honouring your true self. And another part of being neurodivergent is, I think, you are, unless you've had lots of societal pressures on you, you are so authentically yourself. You can't pretend to be what you're not. Because it's hard enough to keep yourself in society within the framework. You can't help who you are. And it's so important for kids to be allowed to be who they are and not shamed for having the interest they have or the enthusiasm they have. Yeah. Let them be themselves. I think that's really important. Yeah.
As an adult and an ex-child of ADHD, as in ex-child, not ex-ADHD, you've got to have that for the rest of my life. I think there's this kind of thing of seeing like the next generation of people in their 20s with ADHD diagnosis and understanding and setting up their careers and the ways of working. I'm so envious. I'm so happy for you that you've got that so early on. But then there's that thing of grief of going, like, I wish I'd understood myself earlier. How much easier would have life been?
Yeah. I don't think my career would have been different. I think giving myself a break would have been different.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's something about that. I read somewhere, and I can't remember where. If I can find it, I'll put it in the notes, of saying that ADHD is a disorder primarily characterized by the feeling of shame.
Yeah. I totally think so. You can't. There's so many examples. So my amazing in-laws, they're amazing. They come and stay from Amsterdam, so they come and stay for like a week or so at a time. And with ADHD, that can be overwhelming. Speakers, they are full of energy, and it's always really, really busy. I learned in the last 6 months to say, I'm just going to take myself outside for a quiet lunch, or I'm just going to sleep a little bit. I'll take myself out of the situation where there is too much going on, without losing my cool with them and then feeling ashamed. Because they are lovely people. Why am I finding them so difficult to be around? And it's not about them, it's about my brain being in overload. So,
it's about taking what you need.
And not being ashamed of. Recognize.
What have we learned? I don't know what we've learned. Have we learned anything? We've had a nice chat. It's been lovely talking to you, Nick.
I mean, it is one person's experience of having ADHD. Let's remember that. I am just one person, and everybody's experience of having it is different. It's to do. A lot of it's to do with luck. Having life to support you. I was never made to feel bad, even though I felt like I was a naughty child at home. Never made to feel bad. Didn't have family. Does that make sense? If you grow up in a family where they were less tolerant, how awful is that to grow up feeling like you deserve punishment? You can't help it.
Right? I think I can reflect on that kind of from my childhood as well. I heavily suspect that my parents are on the autistic spectrum, so there's certain rules that have to be followed. And can you just do the thing? And because this is the way that things are done. Brain says no, thank you. I can't meet the expectations, can't follow the rules. And that's that thing of feeling the shame and the guilt, and then putting it on me as well, of saying like,
such a clash between autism and ADHD. The two of them don't go together, in my experience, because you are all the emotions and they are none of the emotions. And I know you might know ADHD is closely associated with trauma. So the idea that you can't have ADHD if you haven't had trauma, well, I've really thought long and hard about that, and I'm not of any trauma. So
no. I think. Sorry.
I was going to say with autism, that's not influenced by trauma. And there are some overlaps, right? There's so much we don't know about it.
Yes.
The science of what's happening in our brains.
Yeah, and I think there's that thing of I'm intentionally not looking at the science, because there's the ADHD Adults podcast, which I'm wearing the t-shirt of, where they talk about the science as well. And I think there's a really good episode about looking at trauma, and is trauma a source of ADHD? I think the short answer is no. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. Our brain structures are different, and they kind of settle out very early on. I think we're born with this. And we never grow out of it as well.
We just learn to manage it, right?
Yeah, or maybe we don't.
Let's help people learn to manage it, Chris.
Yes, this is why we're doing it. We're saying we're in our 40s. We are running around trying to work out what we're doing, and unpick all of those things and say this is how we're actually going to live happy lives. Hopefully.
Hopefully that people will find this helpful.
And that is the end of the first episode of This is ADHD. Thank you again to Nicola for coming on and talking about her experience. I'm really looking forward to next time with Chris, who is a firefighter, and talking about his diagnosis at 49 as well. Really interesting episode as well. In terms of this episode, I think it's important to call out the privilege that Nick has, and not everyone has that. Not everyone has the opportunity, but also about looking at the lessons of saying, this is ADHD for Nick. This is one person's version, and I'm really looking forward to kind of finding out what the next person's version of ADHD is as well. I'm Chris Johnson, still not a podcaster, and I'll see you next time, hopefully.